Welcome to Talking with Tech. My name is Chris Bouguet, and I am here as always with Rachel Madel. I guess not as always, Rachel, but usually.
I know. Well, the last couple of times it hasn't been as always, right?
But today you're back. So welcome back.
Thank you. Chris, I have a really big surprise for you.
Oh my gosh, what is the big surprise? I'm so excited.
I'm going to show you. Come down so you can see yourself.
It's Mom.
Yes.
Hi, Mom.
So everyone can hear you.
Hi. I've heard so much about you.
And
she's our biggest Talking with Tech fan on air right now.
Absolutely.
I believe it.
I know. So I was like, this is going to be a perfect surprise because we've talked about you a lot on the podcast, Mom.
Yes. And I've heard a lot about you also, Chris.
Well, do you remember that time that I was driving through Pennsylvania and I stopped and had lunch and tea with you? At least I told Rachel I did.
Podcast, and I was like, what?
Absolutely. Saw a couple of buggies go by.
Because the truth is, really, I don't live that far from you. I go to Philadelphia all the time. My family goes to Hershey in the summertime. Constantly I'm driving by going, I bet you I could stop by and see Rachel's mom.
Lancaster County, PA.
I know. We're going to try to coordinate something for the holidays.
Definitely. Maybe we get to meet you in person.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
So what are you doing in LA? You're here visiting?
I came to visit my favorite person. My biggest fan. I'm the biggest fan. So.
She is. She's definitely the biggest fan.
Always have been. Gotten her through thick and thin.
So did you just get in? Because I know that Rachel was in Orlando. I mean, we're recording this right after the American Speech and Hearing Association conference, and I know that Rachel was there.
I know, and I've been watching all the videos. They have been great.
She was watching us live from ASHA. All the live streams she was watching on Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely.
You are the biggest fan.
You have no idea.
You really don't, Chris. She watches my every move on social media. So I have a crazy story to share about my mom being here. So yesterday I flew home from Orlando and I was so excited. So ASHA ended on Saturday night. Yesterday was Sunday. Today is Monday. So I was so excited because my mom was flying from Philadelphia. I was flying from Orlando, and we were intended to land at LAX within 10 minutes of each other. I'm like, this is perfect. I love efficiency. I love, maximizing time. And I was so excited. I was telling everybody at ASHA, tomorrow my mom's going to be landing in LA the same time I am. She comes to visit me every year for Thanksgiving. Chris, I woke up at 7:45 in a state of panic. I had missed my flight.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding. I was in an ASHA coma apparently, and just I had 3 alarms set to go off, 5, 5:15, 5:30. None of them went off.
And I get an emergency text.
SOS. And she actually was in the air. So I woke up, saw that it was light out, realized, oh no, it's not supposed to be light when I wake up for the airport. And so I knew that it was bad. I looked at the time. My flight was literally pulling out of the airport. And it was I got a text message from Delta. We're all set to go. Got a text message from my mom. Can't wait to see you soon, sweetie. And so I sent her a boatload of text messages saying I'm not going to be there. I'm so sorry. I need to figure something else out.
It was all good. It all worked out.
I was going to say, what did you do? So you must have got another flight. And Mom, what did you do? Did you hang at the airport or did you take a lift?
No. I had precise instructions on how to get to Rachel's place.
I know. I was sending her Marco Polos because it's not as simple as you get out of the airport and you go find a taxi. Now at LAX, they have a certain area where you have to go to get a taxi or an Uber or Lyft. And then once you get to my apartment, there's this keypad that she didn't know about because the last time she was here, it was just a standard key. So there are a lot of things I needed to walk through with her.
But like I said, it all worked out. Hung out on my favorite place. Her patio, which needs a lot of work.
She's our horticulture specialist.
Her annual gardener that comes in.
True, she is. And I always say, Mom, I need plants with less maintenance. I'm not as attentive as you are to the garden.
Like a cactus.
Exactly.
That's what I told her. That is what I told her. Oh, well, I'm going to bug out of here. I need to get another cup of coffee.
Like mother, like daughter.
Oh, right. It's only 9:15 in the morning there.
Oh, yes. And coffee wasn't good on the airplane. No.
It's never good on the airplane.
No. So, in fact, that's what I did at the airport. When I got off the plane, I knew I had time. I went to the closest Starbucks and I said, coffee, please. So on that note, you have a good podcast.
Wait, when do you head back? How long is your visit?
Oh, Friday I leave. Black Friday.
And that's our sit. She usually comes on Sunday and then stays until Friday. We spend Thanksgiving now. It's a tradition.
Yes.
We stay in our pajamas. We get Whole Foods and we watch movies.
Fantastic. Just the two of you.
Yeah, it's just the two of us.
Yes.
I know not all of our other families on the East Coast doing, traditional Thanksgiving, and we just decided to hang.
Yeah, we do that the best.
It's true.
That's so great. And then you're getting together for the winter break too, right? I mean, you're going back to to Lancaster.
Yes, I fly back on December 19th. So I'll be back for the holidays.
Awesome. Well, enjoy your time together. Have fun. Fix up those plants, and we'll talk to you soon. I'm so good. This is a great surprise to get to chat with you.
Great seeing you. I put the face with the name. So, all right, out of here.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I thought you would love that, Chris.
Oh my God, she's the best.
I know, she really is. And I mean, I know we talked on the podcast when I woke up one morning and I saw Malia Madel is requesting to join Talking with Tech Facebook group. And I said, here we go. This could be dangerous.
No, that is so great. So when did you get in exactly? When you had to reschedule your flight?
So actually, I got the last seat because Orlando's crazy, as you know. There's not, just ASHA going on at Orlando. There were all types of conventions going on in the convention center. So most conferences end on Saturday or Sunday. And so the airports are crazy. So I was lucky enough to get a flight that left at 11:45. My original flight was supposed to leave at 7:45. So I ended up getting into LA around 3:00, which wasn't so bad.
That's not too bad. Yeah. Well, good. And you got to sleep in. I mean, win-win.
True. I was
Your mom got coffee.
I know, right? I honestly, I think it was just, I was so tired. ASHA was amazing. I loved every second of it, but I was nonstop. I was like a little tornado around that convention center, seeing, all of our listeners, all of the presenters, recording tons of interviews for the podcast. So by the time it was all said and done, I think I was just sleep deprived and my body was like, no, I don't want you to wake up at 5.
Not to mention the time change. I mean, it's not easy to go for that 3-hour time change is a big deal.
Well, especially because I'm still not recovered from Asia. So my jet lag, my body's like, where are we now, Rachel? Now I'm back on the West Coast. Of course I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning.
And well, you're back here on the West Coast, or you're back on the West Coast for a month, but then you head back east. So that is another.
Actually, so what's crazy is that next weekend I have to go to Philly just for 3 days for a wedding. So I'm going to be going to Philly, coming back to LA, and then going back to Philly. It's just it's been bananas.
All right. I'm sure everyone's, waiting with bated breath about ASHA. You sent me a few Marco Polos. We were in constant contact there. Thank you for keeping me. That totally helped satiate my FOMO, fear of missing out. So thank you. It felt like I was there with you a little bit. And so I really, really, really appreciate that. But for those that were not there, who were hashtag not at ASHA, what was it like? What was it all about? What did you learn? Tell us everything.
It was awesome, Chris. I feel like every ASHA is just a little bit different. And this ASHA, I feel like my takeaway was I had the opportunity to actually connect with people outside of AAC, which, of course, I love my AAC people, and I know you're all listening to this podcast. So thank you guys for those of you who went to ASHA and found me. But what was really nice was to educate people who don't know about AAC, actually. So I connected with a lot of the SLP bloggers, and it was so cool because everyone, said, oh my gosh, I have an AAC question. right? So it's like, oh my gosh, can I just talk with you for 5 minutes? And everyone had a different question about a different device, system, problem that I could troubleshoot. And so it was really fun to connect with clinicians who, maybe AAC isn't their primary focus, but they're really interested and eager to learn about AAC. So for me, that was the biggest takeaway. I also, connected with some other people who do work with adults, other clinicians who are, OT and speech therapists. I met somebody who was presenting on regulation and the overlap between our scope of practice. Oftentimes when it comes to sensory stuff, we think, oh, that's OT, right? That's OT, like that's not my scope. And so her presentation was all about how we can start integrating the scope and sensory processing, how important, this is for children who, need to be ready to learn. How can we start incorporating these strategies? How can we learn more about it? How do we know when to refer out? And what strategies that we can start utilizing in our sessions? So that was really interesting. It was just a lot of really great connections that I made with lots of different kinds of people.
So how did you attack ASHA this year? Because I know there was time spent at the exceptional ed booth. And like you said, you went to some sessions, you were presenting sessions. Do you sit down and pre-plan it? How does, what's your game plan?
I was like a chicken with my head cut off. That was my game plan. I was on the no game plan. So I, oftentimes when I had a free moment, I was at the exceptional ed booth a lot. That's because I was, corralling everybody that I saw who I knew was presenting on AAC to come to the booth. A lot of clinicians who I have known through either social media or because they've been on the podcast, I wanted to meet them in real life. And so oftentimes I would leave the ex-ed booth and I would be getting text messages from all the other people at the booth. There's people here waiting for you, Rachel. When are you coming back? So-and-so's here. This group of students want to meet you. And so I was kind of running around. I was trying to, connect with all of the people in the exhibit hall who I know from year to year, who I see at ASHA. But it was kind of craziness. I got to see some of the poster sessions, which was amazing because all of the poster sessions that I went to, first, I would introduce myself, oh, thank you. Like, my name's Rachel. And everyone at the AAC posters were like, I know who you are, which made me feel so great that people are listening to this podcast.
Yeah. Don't you get the impression that there's a lot of people who listen are students that are in a undergrad or graduate class, and that the world has evolved from studying textbooks to now still using textbooks, but having other modalities for gaining information like this podcast,
Absolutely.
It's amazing, right?
It's amazing. I can't tell you how many professors came up to me and said, I have my students listen to your podcast. Mm-hmm. And so that was the most exciting for me. Of course, we have people who listen who just like eat, live, and breathe AAC, which I love. They know all of the big names in AAC. They can cite every research article. We have those listeners listening right now, but we also have a new group of clinicians that are learning about AAC. And that's what makes me most excited, is because it feels like we really have an opportunity to teach, right? And change the way that clinicians are thinking about AAC and using AAC. And so that's what's so exciting to me, is that we're really making an impact with either pre-service or CFY clinicians.
So it's funny you say that, because while you were at ASHA for the first day, I was at the Access to Education conference, which is in Indianapolis. And when I flew in and I got there, a bunch of the presenters were kind of just hanging around the lobby, right outside. There's like a bar area. And so it's like, oh, Chris, it's all these people that I present with and see at various conferences in the assistive technology world. And one of the people that works at Patents, which is the organization that puts on this conference, her name is Sandy. And Sandy said, oh, Chris, can you do me a favor? My daughter loves talking with tech. She loves listening, and she didn't believe that you were actually going to be here. Would you mind if we got a picture, or if we FaceTime? I was like, yeah, throw FaceTime up. Let's say hi to her. So Courtney, big listener, she is in her first year of practice as a speech therapist working at Easter Seals. And so I feel like it just falls right in line with our conversation, is that the new generation is listening and learning and soaking up the information. So hi, Courtney, and all the other students out there listening, and all the other first years listening, and all the other second years listening, and everyone else who's new. Thank you for listening.
Well, we actually had an episode where you interviewed 4 students. Do you remember that episode?
I do.
Was it like a year ago?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Those students found me, Chris.
They did.
And they said, we're the students that Chris interviewed on the podcast. And so I took a picture with them. I'll have to send it to you. There were so many photos taken. My cheeks were like hurting from smiling so much.
Now, you said that you recorded a bunch of interviews. And so how did that go? Like full-length interviews, shorter interviews, both? What's the deal?
Just some bite-sized interviews. I was really interested in a lot of different kinds of people, right? So, over the next week or so, I don't know how many episodes we're gonna extend this over, because I was working my little tail off. I did so many interviews over the course of 3 days, but some of the interviews are presenters, people who are presenting on AAC. Some of the interviews were app developers and people who are, creating products and apps for AAC. Some were just some of our biggest fans who wanted to come on and just talk about their experience at ASHA and how much they love the podcast. So it's a nice little mix of lots of little interviews that you're going to hear over the next couple weeks. So I'm really excited to share all of those with you guys. And hopefully, if you weren't able to go to ASHA, you'll be able to feel like you were at ASHA.
Great. I can't wait to listen. So without further ado, let's have a listen to some of Rachel's interviews at ASHA 2019.
Welcome to Talking with Tech. I'm here with Lynsey, Lobdell, and Brie Norton. Hey, ladies, how are you today?
We're good.
Doing
How
good. We're live at ASHA, which is super exciting. We're in the exhibit hall, which is kind of crazy.
It's really crazy. Very busy.
But happy to be here. I want to hear all about your guys' work.
We are I'm in a private practice setting, and Brie works in the public schools, and we are focusing on improving outcomes through effective collaboration.
Amazing.
So we're so excited that we get to present at ASHA this year.
I love it.
So we came together, and we're being sponsored by the Center of AAC and Autism. So that was really, really exciting.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I love that. So what were some gems of wisdom during your talk? Did you guys already present?
It's actually tomorrow.
Oh, what time?
5 o'clock.
Oh my God, I'm presenting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Well, I'm so sad that I can't be at your talk because I'll be talking myself. But just give us a sneak preview. What are some gems that you're going to drop during your presentation? What are some one or two nuggets of wisdom?
So I think through our collaboration, which has been happening for the past 3-4 years, we've found that there's 4 foundational components that people can implement to help ensure authentic communication for kids across all environments. So we're excited to share those 4 foundational components, and also how they're such a game changer in making progress for these kids.
So essentially, we're focused on improved team communication for that, just to kind of promote a collaborative environment, and then training as well as support, and lastly, culture. And that's kind of where we've really seen the pervasive improvements of our students by putting all 4 of those in place. And then the culture is where we really saw it kind of explode.
And when you say culture, give me some tangible ideas as to how you can facilitate culture.
So we're really trying to make AAC accessible for all. So it's not just for our AAC users, but for all communication partners and all kids. So in the school setting, we have AAC devices projected on smart boards. So our general education kids are communicating with that AAC device.
Love.
And I know Lynsey's doing some stuff too to really build that culture in her clinic.
So interdisciplinary support, improved continuity of care from not only between public and private, but between other therapy providers, including ABA programs and other support professionals that are involved with our complex communicators.
I love that. Actually, this is going to be a whole nother episode, but I had some Uber trouble this morning. I'm staying in an Airbnb, which was a mistake. I should definitely be staying at the Hyatt so I could just get up and walk across the street.
Right.
But I had some Uber challenges this morning, and I ended up getting into an Uber with another speech language pathologist. She's like, "Oh, I see your badge. You're going to ASHA. Come with me." I get in the car, and she starts talking about AAC. She's from Australia, and we got chatting. She's actually going to come on the podcast, which is hilarious. But she was talking about the infrastructure they're putting into place as far as community-based low-tech AAC. So she gave the example of the train, and in Australia, in her specific neck of the woods, she has helped implement low-tech boards on the, when you purchase your tickets. All of the train conductors have visuals in their pocket, all for people who have complex communication needs. So when you said culture, I was like, culture is fresh on my mind because I just met this wonderful speech language pathologist in my Uber, and I'm so excited. I was like, you have to come on my podcast.
I'm actually really glad that you mentioned low tech. I feel like that has been also a key thing in as far as like our culture, and that when people say AAC, right, in air quotes, a lot of times what they're talking about is high tech.
Yes,
agreed. And I feel like there's this kind of prosthetic piece that gets put in between us, and that if we don't forget low tech and we can embrace low tech as also being almost pivotal to supporting our users, in that they can still have a high tech device, but we can improve the overall accessibility by also having other low tech supports in place.
And the other thing is, all of the students benefit, right? All of the students benefit from those types of supports. So how can we start integrating more of that? And I also think that kind of feeds the culture piece. If it's commonplace, right, in all of the classrooms and all of the settings, then it's more accepted naturally.
Yeah, it's not as big of a deal. I mean, it's a big deal, right? But it doesn't have to be this laborious kind of cumbersome thing that's in the way of communication. Mm-hmm. It's almost like facilitating the communication rather than feeling like this foreign thing that people don't know what to do with.
It's just another type of voice, yeah.
Exactly. Well, ladies, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm so happy to hear all of your experience and your wisdom. I'm sad I'm not going to make your talk tomorrow.
I know.
Feel the same, yeah.
I'll give you a shout out during my talk.
Awesome. We'll
right back at you.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Welcome to Talking with Tech. I'm here with Maria Kotsonis. Maria, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am so good. So Maria has an amazing podcast, SLPs Wine and Cheese.
That's right. It's Deborah Brooks and I, Maria Kotsonis, and we are the co-hosts of the show. And we've had the show for about 1.5 years now. And it's just been exciting. And I feel like it goes along with the theme this year of ASHA Imaginologists. Imagine, right? I never imagined to be on a podcast. Like, I don't know about you, Rachel, but...
what's funny is that I never in a million years, if someone was like, you're going to host a podcast about AAC, I'd be like, nah, you got the wrong Rachel.
Exactly.
So it's funny how these things kind of just like, we could go down a certain path and then, 2 years later, you've been hosting a podcast for 2 years.
I know. Sometimes I forget myself.
I know.
Really, Deb, I have to give it to her. She's the one who kind of thought of the idea, and she asked me. She just randomly texted me and was like, hey, do you want to be on this podcast with me? And I was like, really? And I'm like, why me? Yeah, me? And she's like, yeah, you're an SLP. We know each other. And she wanted it to be light and entertaining and fun. And apparently I embody that, which I didn't really know. So I'm learning things about the podcast industry itself, but also even about myself.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Exactly. And I really love your podcast because it's just it's very lighthearted. It's super funny.
Thank you.
And so I feel like that's kind of what you guys both, on the podcast, but also in real life. You guys are really a lot of fun and super, super great energy. So
awesome.
It definitely translates on the podcast.
Yes. I'm glad that it does because that is what's happening. Like Deb and I, we're great friends. She just asked me last week to be a bridesmaid.
Aww.
She just, we've, as a result of the podcast, her and I have become really great friends. So it's just all positive things coming from it. And I'm just so honored to be on the show and that it's even happening. I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. Let's keep it going.
Well, it's just so fun because first of all, podcasting has really taken off. So everybody is listening to podcasts all day long. And it's so cool within our field to see all of these new and interesting podcasts pop up because it's just really a way for us clinicians to come together, to connect, to make us feel like we're not alone. Because a lot of times, clinicians work in school districts or they work in private practice, and we're kind of like in a silo doing our own thing. And so what I love about podcasting is that I'm able to, listen to your podcast and all the other amazing SLP podcasts, and I'm like, I'm not alone. Like, they're going through the same thing that I'm going through.
Yeah, exactly. That sense of community, which is really important, and you might not really have that face-to-face whatever your situation is. So when you could just hear it and on the go too, the convenience aspect. Yeah, I was just telling a listener, I was like, I listen when I fold my clothes, like to different podcasts. So it's like, yeah, I'm doing something, but I'm also like gaining a lot of information too. So you're like learning at the same time, which I feel like we all love to learn, right? We wouldn't be at ASHA if you didn't love to learn.
It's true.
Come on.
It's true. And let's make it more efficient. What I love the most about podcasts is that you can do 2 times the speed. So,
oh gosh, I don't know how you do. My brother does that. I'm like, what
I'm
are
super
we doing
intense
here?
about it.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. I'm like, I feel like I can't even think, let alone understand what they're even saying. I'm like, is this a different language here? I'm like lost. I'm like, I don't know who these people are who could listen times 2, but you guys have like superhuman brains. But
I know.
So
honestly,
I do not have a superhuman brain.
Well, maybe 1.5. 1.5 speed,
Yeah,
Maria?
I've tried 1.5, and I'm like, I'm not that much in a rush. Let me just tone it down a half.
Take it down a notch.
Take it down a half of a notch and just do it on 1. And because I don't want to miss it, I guess. But can you tell me how you're able to comprehend that?
I'm not quite sure. And I have to say, sometimes it gets a little intense.
Yes.
So I have to it depends what I'm doing. If I'm kind of multitasking and my brain can't completely focus, I can't do double time. And honestly, for some people, they already naturally talk fast. And so like double time is just like, sounds like a chipmunk. And
Yes.
so, then I have to, take it down a notch, take it down a half notch. I
Right.
hardly ever listen at 1.
Wow.
I'm usually at 1.5. and
Superhuman brain, Rachel. That's what I'm going to
Optimally
call
too.
you. Yes.
But yeah, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to say something. And
So
now I'm like,
sorry I interrupted.
no,
See,
it's
I don't have a superhuman brain. See, this is what we do.
It's totally fine. Oh, I was going to ask a question.
You
It
were
was so
saying
good.
that sometimes, I'll get you back there. Sometimes it sounds like a chipmunk.
You got me, girl. So what's funny is that we have an amazing audio editor. Her name is Michaela, and she actually has to tone down my speed. So I am a fast talker, and I can tell when I listen to our podcast back, I'm like, I definitely didn't say it that slow.
I was going to say, I don't think you are that quick of a talker, but that's because they have adjusted your speed, and I had no idea.
Well,
See?
what's interesting about my rate of speech, if we're going to deep dive, because that's what SLPs do.
Let's do it.
What's
I'm diving.
interesting is that when I'm in conversation, it's different than if I'm excited and I'm talking about something. So a lot of times on our podcast, we talk and deep dive about AAC and all these things, and then I start getting really excited.
Yes.
And then I start talking faster.
Yes, because you're passionate about
Exactly.
it. Yeah, and it shows through.
Yeah.
Yeah, your
so-
passion shows in your voice.
But it's funny because I know that she's doing some editing, because I'm like, I definitely don't talk that slow. It almost sounds weird to me to hear myself talk slow.
right. But it's important to remember that, you got to give the audience some time to think about it and process it,
Exactly.
Some other people like myself, we need it a little casual.
Slow it down a little
Slow
bit.
it down. That's something I talk about on our show, SLPs, Wine and Cheese, to just scale it down, and I think, and I really do know that, like, SLPs, we're always coming from a good place, and we want to do so much, and it can be overwhelming sometimes, and it's like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to just slow it down and tackle one thing at a time within the session, let alone in the long term.
Yep.
So it's just good advice.
It is. And honestly, I'm a fast-paced person.
Yes.
And so I need reminders to slow it down. So I think it sounds like I need to listen to your podcast
Yes.
more.
Some wine, the
exactly.
wine.
So wine
Tip
will
it-
definitely slow it all down.
Right. Tip it back. Nice little slow sip, and smell the wine. Enjoy it.
Exactly. Savor it. Savor that wine.
Yes.
Well, Maria, thank you so much for coming on and hopping on this podcast recording today. If you guys haven't listened, SLP Wine and Cheese, it's an amazing podcast. Deborah Books, Maria Kotsonis, and thank you again for stopping by.
Give us a listen. Thank you so much for having me, and it's been such a pleasure speaking with you and visiting your really exceptional booth.
Yes, exceptional with an X.
Exceptional with an X. It's like a double X.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Maria. I'm here live at ASHA with John Kim. John, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
So you're so welcome. You presented earlier today. Are you presenting again too?
Yes, I presented yesterday.
Oh, yesterday it was. Okay.
At 5. It was a technical clinical session.
Amazing.
It was based on the SETT framework, SETT framework.
Ooh, I love the SETT framework.
And how to incorporate AAC into the classroom curriculum. So I am technically a school-based speech pathologist who is also AAC and assistive technology specialist as well.
You have a lot of hats on.
I do have a lot of hats on. So I do work closely with Toby Dynavox, Prankeromics, with the LAMP, and also with Celtilla, with Touch Chat, and all those people. I email them on a weekly basis regarding my kids that I serve.
Yeah. So tell me some gems from your presentation yesterday.
Oh, sure. So we are using the SETT framework by Dr. Zavala, the student, environment, the task, and the tool. Right now, they're trying to use the SETT framework into more of a rehab setting. So instead of the student, they restate it as self, environment, the task, and the tool.
I love that.
So in order to endorse many SLPs from across settings, I put student and self on there, saying that we need to focus on the individual, right?
Absolutely.
Individual, their current environment of where they're doing, where they're at, where they're learning, where they're growing, and then the task, the daily activities of daily living, along with the classroom tasks, and then the tools. What are the tools required to meet the needs of that expectation of that task? So we have created a questionnaire for service providers, so classroom teachers, myself, OT, PT, all those service providers, to identify what kind of tool is needed to reach that task. What will fill in that gap? So it is more like a preliminary presentation that I have kind of disseminated a prototype, a set of questionnaires where they can fill out and saying, oh my gosh, I don't know this kid's disorder. Oh, I don't know this person's issue, current medical issue, so probably have to research that more. Or, oh my gosh, I don't know the tools that would be necessary or appropriate for my student or the individual to do activities of daily living or to do a classroom expected task and so forth. Or, oh my gosh, maybe I have to rearrange my classroom environment, or maybe I have to advocate for my students and create a ramp for my students and things like that. So it would be a self-guiding tool to make accessibility happen across campus, across settings in their homes and so forth. Yeah.
So who is the person that's utilizing this questionnaire? Is it speech language pathologists? Is it teachers?
So it would be delivered out to the service providers, classroom teachers, SLPs, OTs, PTs, anyone who's working with the student. And then with that information, we can definitely utilize that database and have the district provide more professional development, or we can have the assistive technology team like myself would go out and do more trainings on how to utilize that and incorporate AAC into the classroom curriculum, which needs to happen throughout the day, not only during when the speech therapist is here.
You are correct, John. You are correct. You're speaking my language now.
Yes, yes.
So let me ask you this. What has been your experience as far as the biggest challenge with the SETT framework?
So this project actually started me being frustrated with the classroom teachers. Certain classroom teachers saying, every student's AAC should be the same. And I said, no, because it won't be their voice. It would be the textbook. That's what I said, because everything's in the same thing, right? There's no individualization. There's nothing. I have another teacher saying, this is too much work for me. I have so many things going on. I got to add this onto my plate. This is too much work. Now I have another teacher saying, I don't believe in AAC.
Ooh, I don't know if I like that teacher.
I don't believe in AAC. You know, they all have their different, they can point, they can come up, they can drag me. Some teachers who have been in the field for a very long time with their in-depth of experience, they think, oh, AAC, no, not my vibe.
Yeah.
And I also have speech language pathologists who also feel that AAC is not their area of expertise because it's such a new field and it's coming up, we do have experienced SLPs who feel incompetent or feel not comfortable with students who are using AAC as well. So it would be a good indicator, and it would be a good guiding set of guiding questions for service providers to identify, oh, maybe I should research what Proloco look like. Oh, I should research what PECs look like in order to better support the students. Or if we're working with adults, we have to see what an eye gaze look like. We got to see what a scanning system look like, or a head mouse for that individual to do their activities of daily living.
I want to circle back. You mentioned some of the problems that teachers are explaining to you, which I think is a very common thing. As far as every student having a different device, is there any strategies or tricks or tools that you utilize to help teachers manage multiple devices in one classroom?
So I do believe in the power of core vocabulary. So I'm a strong believer in that. So I would say, you know what, why don't we make a classroom core vocabulary board, right? Print it in a poster size, post it up on the wall, right? And then that can be your preliminary way to communicate with the students. So go, stop, I want, all those things, right? Oh no, things like that. And then the teacher can utilize that as one method. And if we have more specific fringe vocabulary, like things that the student would really want, things the student would like to do, to have access for, that would be in their device. And it will be upon our assistive technology team to come out and train what those devices would look like. So I have students who are using Proloco to Go. I have students who are using Touch Chat. And then I also have students using LAMP, all in one classroom. But I always come out and do trainings, do a refresher after a long break, just like this one.
Yes.
And we come out and be like, okay, do we know where to go? Do we know how to reinforce? And and stuff like that. But I always say, always have a classroom-sized core board that is unified across the curriculum. So teachers can always reference it back to that, and always have the visual, like classroom-sized visual schedule always ready to go with them. Yes.
And sometimes I find that teachers, they get really hung up on the symbols. I think speech therapists sometimes do too. But what I always explain is, listen, we need just a visual representation of language. It's not going to be perfect, right? It's like, it's always the teachers that are perfectionists that have an issue with the symbols. I'm like, listen, we can't do all the things. We just need to do the best that we can. And what I'm most concerned about is that we have a visual representation of the language that we're using all day long. So if we can do that, that's like half the battle. Exactly.
Yes, a visual representation, and that visual representation has to be consistent, right? If there is a sign for more, and it's different visual for more, and if it's it's another different visual for more, like all around the classroom, the students are going to be like, what am I looking at? And I also say, if we're using the same pictures, use the same pictures around the classroom, across campus, and so forth. Right? Yeah, and then if you have a student that's using a different symbol set, you just, you show the visual support and then you model on the device. Exactly. Right? Like kids will start, if you start pairing the language with meaningful experiences, children will start learning. Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Amazing. So what's your talk on tomorrow? Today at 5. Today at 3:30. Well, everything's totally swirling in my head, John. I can't keep anything straight. No worries. So today at 3, I'm doing a different presentation, not on AAC, but on bilingual assessments, a step-by-step approach. It's going to be an hour seminar. We're going to be talking about various steps on how to make ethical judgments during bilingual assessments, and especially I will wrap it to students who speak a different language that utilizes AAC. What does that look like? Yeah. And so forth. So that would be a conversation. So, John, I did my first bilingual AAC assessment the other day. I don't have a lot of opportunities, surprisingly, even though I'm in Los Angeles, to do bilingual assessments. And this one is incredibly important because it's an independent evaluation and it's a very litigious case. But anyway, I did this assessment and I had a bilingual SLP with me. Okay. It was 7.5 hours I assessed this child for AAC. But I have to say,
we needed all 7.5 of those hours, because what we really needed to figure out was because I'd say that the student was probably 50-50, some 50% English, 50% Spanish, and it depended on individual words.
Exactly.
And so what we had to figure out was, we need to put pollo in the device instead of chicken, because no one ever calls it chicken at home, and that's where she's using, that word more. So it was just like, it was kind of painstaking in a lot of ways, but the end result was beautiful, because this is a student who has not, we'll say, no one can see me right now, but I'm doing air quotes, demonstrated that she can use high-tech AAC.
Right.
And so to have her be successful when we utilized, what we know about bilingual assessment and, of course, what I know about AAC, we merged those two things. It was just a really beautiful thing to see how successful she was.
Exactly. And that is, again, promoting that communication needs to be accessible and achievable for all.
Exactly. Well, John, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You've been a wonderful resource for the podcast. I'm excited to share. And good luck with your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm here with Andrea Paulson. She is a listener of Talking with Tech, and I'm so excited that she stopped by the booth today. Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here.
You are so welcome. How has ASHA been so far?
ASHA has been amazing. This is like my first time coming. I'm an undergraduate student whom we're just graduating in May of 2020. So it's so exciting to see like how big the profession is and coming to all the exhibits. It's so much fun.
It's so fun. It's sometimes a little overwhelming. I remember my first ASHA. I was like, my head was spinning, and afterwards I face planted in my bed for like 3 days.
Yes, we had to go home and take a nap yesterday because it was a little overwhelming.
Exactly. There's just so much to do. There's so many connections to be made. There's so much learning. There's so much going into your brain. But it's amazing. What has been your favorite talk or experience that you've experienced so far?
So the intro with the general session, it was so good. I can't remember the presenter's name, but like he wanted to make me cry. He was talking about how he was a foster student and how he came in and how important like people are, and I feel like that's a really big important part of what we do is like making sure that we're there for other people and seeing them, and it was just a really touching story.
Well, and sometimes I think we forget our why, right? We get so in the motion, and you'll know this once you start working in our field. We're kind of so laser focused on goals and IEPs and all of the targets, and it's like we forget sometimes, oh wait, like this is a child or an adult who has a communication disorder, and we are here to help. So I think anytime that we can kind of loop back to the inspirational aspects of what we do, and I think that's why these conferences are so great, is because, yes, you learn amazing new strategies and research that's going on, but what's really awesome is then when you get inspired to go back to your practice and do something different or try something new.
Absolutely. No, totally. And it's so cool also. We have like some of our classmates are like doing posters, presenters, and it's just exciting to see where you can be, and where it can take you and how you can be more a part of it. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know you want to give a shout out. Yes. Where do you go to school?
I go to school at Middle Tennessee State University. Go Blue Raiders.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So I am tasked to tell people that we have a 14th annual Mid-10 conference. And we're having our keynote speaker is Dr. Roseberry McKibben, and she's coming to talk about the assessment of English language learners for language differences versus disorders. Ooh. So it's going to be so interesting, and it's on Saturday, February 29th, and you get 6 CEUs, 6 units of CEUs offered.
I love it.
Y'all should just come. If you have any information, just email nisla@mtsu.edu.
Amazing.
We'd love to have you.
I love that.
People, so yes, please come.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for stopping by. Your energy is infectious.
Stop. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I've been a long-time listener, and so it's really fun to be here.
I'm here live at ASHA with Nicole Tripp. Nicole, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so excited that you stopped by our booth. It was so funny, everyone who's listening, because I wasn't a part of this conversation, but I overheard AAC and I was like, oh my gosh. And they're like, you need to talk to Rachel. And here it was Nicole Tripp, and we had already organized this. So, Nicole, how was your presentation?
It was great. It was one of the 30-minute technical clinical, which was a change in format from what I had submitted. But, I appreciate different ways of talking to people. And sometimes I think a 30-minute quick hit is about all that people can take, especially by Friday.
It's true. You're so right. Exactly. Like, we need to remember that people are only absorbing a certain amount of information that's being thrown at their brain.
Yeah. And as speech pathologists, I think we're very inclined to fill quiet spaces with a lot of extra words. And so sometimes we say things that aren't necessary. We're like, yeah, I could do this in 30 minutes.
It's so true. And, actually, I was telling you before we went on air, that happened to me last year. And it was great because I actually had to prioritize, right? I'm like, what are the most important things?
Correct.
And so I think that practice was actually really beneficial.
No, I think it was helpful for me too.
Awesome. So what was the content of your session?
It was about data collection to drive change for school-based AAC service delivery. And so I work in a public education agency, and I developed a database when I moved into a new school district last year in order to track data to see who was using AAC, what kind of AAC was being used, how functional was it, how effective was it, did they have AAC evaluations. And I did that first to be able to just help guide myself, but also to be able to talk to administrators and show them how much we needed to do and promote funding and professional development based on the data that we're seeing.
I love that. I love that as a way to... we can go to administrators all day long and say, like, this is what we need. But when you lay out all the data,
it's hard to turn away from.
Exactly. That's when people start paying attention. So I love that. If there was one gem of wisdom from your technical session, what do you think it would be?
I think it would be when you're going into a system that you're trying to either change services that are already in place for AAC or start AAC services in your district, that you need to look at what's going on and figure out what's working as well as what's not working before you make change based on what you heard someone else does.
Yeah.
It's just like evaluating our clients, evaluate what's going on in your district and build on that.
And I also love that you said evaluate what's working.
Yeah.
Right? Because oftentimes we just think like, oh, like here's the laundry list of things that are not working. And that's what we hyper focus on. Like any good, model, let's focus on the positive, right? Let's give credit where credit's due and not change things that are really working for places.
Because people don't like that. When you come, especially if you're coming into a system like I am, there are some things that are working. And if people put those in place and they are working, if you try to change them even though they're working, you're not building a teamwork, a relationship, a collaboration with that person because they're put off by you because you didn't listen to them and something that was working.
Exactly. And are you school-based or you're school-based?
I am school-based. I work in a Spring Branch Independent School District. We have about 42 campuses,
wow.
35,000 students, and I do AAC district-wide.
That is wild.
Which we need more, which is why I'm trying to...
She's plugging it. She needs more help, people.
Well, I would love to be able to hire someone. I need the administrators to know we need more help, which is part of what this data is about.
That was the impetus. It was like, listen, help me, I'm drowning.
Hire more people.
Exactly.
Give me more money.
Well, I can't believe. I mean, what you have jurisdiction over a lot of children.
It is. It's a lot. But I've been doing AAC at a district level for a long time, so this is kind of par for the course for someone who's doing AAC. The fact that I'm full-time in doing it when I know a lot of SLPs are out there trying to manage a campus caseload and doing this part-time.
I know. Yeah. What are some strategies that you teach either to other clinicians or teachers that you think are the most helpful?
In terms of implementation of AAC or?
Sure. Let's go implementation. I know it's like we could talk about a lot of things, Rachel. Let's go implementation.
You've got to meet the child where they're interested in. So you've got to find out what they want to do and what they don't want to do. I get so many teachers that are like, can you get them to communicate about the need for a restroom? And it's like,
I know.
so let's
I know that all too
rethink
well.
that. I think it's really important to have a collaborative model. And that can be hard for a lot of different reasons, but an SLP can't do it alone. And an SLP also shouldn't feel like they're the end-all be-all about AAC, because we have some fantastic teachers and paraprofessionals and related health providers that have a wealth of AAC knowledge, and we need to be able to pass the reins on to them and not feel like we're the only ones that own it. But we need to work on developing that so that we're providing more effective services for our students.
Absolutely. And that is a really important point. There's so many people outside of our speech language pathology that are doing amazing work in AAC. How can we take what they're doing and continue to support them, help guide them, with our expertise? Just the more collaboration, the better. But of course, it's like no one has time. People have egos. There's a lot of things that sometimes roadblock that. But I think it's just a constant reminder, having that constant reminder. Whenever I have a challenging situation in my own practice, I think, okay, I take a step back, right? And I think, how can I collaborate better? And I think that's the name of the game. How can I, provide more information? How can I support in a different way? Because everybody has different things, right? Different styles of interaction and how they learn. And there's so many different variables, but being able to at least have the awareness of, looking at somebody, how they might learn, or how the interaction maybe didn't go the way you wanted, or how can we make it go the opposite way? And I think it comes down to just, really respecting people and
hearing them.
Exactly. And listening instead of just coming in and saying, try this, this, and this. Listening, what's going on? How can I help? It's my favorite phrase to use when I'm going in a classroom, because it might not even be communication related, right? It's we're understaffed, but at least that gives me information content as to what the struggles are with that particular teacher.
Exactly. I mean, as an AT person, I can't tell you the number of times when I've gone into a classroom and asked how I could help. It's usually to reset their iPad or help them with their password on their computer. And if that gets them to feel like I'm there to support them, sure.
Yes, exactly.
I'll be your tech support guy.
Exactly. I know. It's so true. And then it's all about the rapport building. You go in, you help with something that might not even be, speech related. And then all of a sudden you're starting to develop a relationship with someone.
Exactly.
And it's not just like I'm coming in and then I'm going to tell you what to do and then I leave, which, we all know is not best practice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for stopping by.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to hear about your experience and all of your nuggets of wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It was really nice to be able to talk to you and kind of debrief in my own mind how everything went.
I know. When you're at a crazy conference like this, I feel like it's so much information. And I was actually at a business conference a few weeks ago, and they had, it was so nice because at the beginning of the booklet that they gave us, it was like your takeaways, your top 3 takeaways. And I'm like, that's so smart, because we can't take everything away, but we can take those like the things that really meant something to us in that particular session or interaction with someone.
That's something we can work with and be actionable. And that's exactly why I think the 30-minute session was pretty good, because I could do that.
You're changing my mind. I was upset last year about my 30-minute session, and you've changed my mind, Nicole.
Good.
I'm here with Daisy Clay, and as you guys know, we oftentimes do these small tech episodes. So Daisy was nice enough to talk with us at ASHA, and I wanted her to come back on and talk about Simple AAC, which is a framework that she has created, and I think it's super useful. So Daisy, first of all, thank you so much for coming back on.
No, you're welcome. It's great to be here.
So what is Simple AAC?
So Simple AAC is a framework that I put together because I kept on finding the same problem over and over when a child was being given a system. They had the device, they had the software, they had the vocabulary package, and then the people around that child with the system were just terrified of it, and they didn't know what to do, they didn't know where to start, they were feeling really overwhelmed. And so those people might go to Google and they might look up, AAC and what do I do? And that might not help them either, because although there's loads of really lovely information on the internet, there is so much information. It's really difficult to know where to start with that. And the other thing that I find is a problem is there's loads of terminology that's really scary if you're a parent, you're a teacher, or even if you're a speech therapist who's new to AAC. You start seeing terms like augmented language input and aided language stimulation, you immediately feel like you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
So Simple AAC is something that I put together to sort of counteract that and make people feel a bit more reassured and try and take the fear out of AAC implementation a little bit and give something that people can work their way through and build their confidence and just really use the device with the child and get started.
Yep.
So each letter of Simple AAC stands for a different strategy, and it stands for something that anyone can do. You don't have to be a qualified speech therapist. You don't have to wait for the therapist or the specialist to come in each week and work with your child. Simple AAC is for anyone working with that child to work their way through. So the first letter of Simple AAC stands for show. S is for show. And yes, that is all about modelling and augmented input and aided language, but it doesn't use any of that terminology. It just talks about how we need to show the user what to do. Then I is keeping it interesting. We know it's really, really important that we've got to keep it interesting. And sometimes it can be easy to lose sight of that when we know we have our targets and we want to teach adjectives and we focus in on that, but we stop making it interesting for the child. M stands for months and months.
Ooh, I'm so intrigued. I have no idea what this means. Tell me more, Daisy.
So it's not a specific strategy, but it's really early on in Simple AAC because it's really important to remember that it takes months and months and months of modelling and keeping it interesting and using AAC with someone before they might start to actually use it themselves and before you might start to see progress. So it's just a key reminder. Months and months.
Yeah.
You need to give that learner months and months, just like we do when we're talking to a child we're expecting to speak back. We don't give up after 6 months when they're not talking back.
It's so true. I always think about, I always say it's not this like crazy Dateline special where you see your child's locked in and then you give them technology and all of a sudden they're, creating sentences. That's unfortunately not reality. And it's really important to set up that expectation for families. This is going to be, a process. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So I love months and months because it does take months and months to actually start seeing, a child initiating, communicating using a device.
Yeah, absolutely. So P stands for pause, which is a really important reminder that even when we are doing all of that modelling, which is great, we need to pause and give the learner time to respond to what we've said, or even give them time to initiate, because we know from research AAC users are much more likely to be responding, not initiating. So we want to try and get that in really, really early and just build in time. And again, when you're going through these strategies with someone, and if it's a class teacher or a teaching assistant, and you're saying, the strategy I want to work on now is just pausing. What I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to do nothing.
Yes.
To just count to 10.
Well, and especially when we know motivation's high, it's the perfect time to just not do anything.
Yeah. So we're keeping it interesting. We've been modeling. We've been doing it for a long time. Now we pause and we see what happens. And particularly children with complex access, if they've got complex physical difficulties, they might just need that time to initiate a movement. And I work with a lot of children who have a long processing time, and they might need 30 seconds to think about what they're going to say, think about where that word is in their system, coordinate their movement for their access method. So yeah, pause, just pause.
Love it. L, what's L?
L is for language. So language is a reminder to think about all of the different reasons why we use language, and make sure when we're modelling that we're modelling language for different reasons and we're not just getting stuck on requesting.
Thank God. Thank God you said it, Daisy. I say it all the time on this podcast.
Can so easily happen. So I just try and get people to think about what reasons they communicate for. So asking questions, answering questions, telling a story, saying what they did at the weekend, all of these really, really rich language communication functions. So just reminding them to make sure that they're modelling those as well, not just asking questions. And
exactly.
Getting them to request.
Love it. Okay, E.
E is for explore.
Ooh, I like this one.
Again, that's just a strategy about giving the learner time to explore their system and giving them reassurance that it's okay to just explore the device. So that learner might just be selecting different buttons and hearing what they say, but that's okay. And an anecdote I quite like to share is my best friend, she knows what I do for a living, but when I was making SuperCore and designing that system, I was trying to explain to her what I'd been working on. So I showed her the SuperCore vocabulary. And this is my friend who is literate. I'd explained what I do. She knows about AAC from my work. First thing that she did when I showed it to her was she pressed all of the buttons to see what they said, even though every single symbol had a written label she can read. The first thing that my adult friend did was to explore the system.
Yes.
Because she wanted to learn what it was going to do. And so it's so important to just make sure that learners have that opportunity to explore and that it's not necessarily seen as a negative thing of, oh, they're just playing with the device. Well, actually, no, they're learning. They're learning that device and they're hearing what all of those words say. And exploration is a really, really important part of AAC learning.
Well, and it's important to remember that that's how all children learn language. That's what babbling is, it's an exploration of speech sounds. And so you're exactly right. We can't expect a child when we put a device in front of them to just all of a sudden be, incredibly accurate with all of the buttons that they're activating. It's also important to remember that a lot of the children that we're working with are not yet literate. So I always, when I'm doing presentations, I show a slide. I show a slide with everything, and then I take the labels off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of it, yeah.
And people are like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I'm like, this is what our learners see. So of course, if that was all I saw, I would have to hit the buttons and explore and keep hitting the buttons to remember where they were. So it's just such an important reminder.
Yeah, and with a high-tech AAC system as well, some of the exploration is going to be around navigating between different pages and learning how that works and learning about the functions, things like clearing your message window. They have to learn all of that as well. So exploration is really important and a really key strategy. So A for AAC. The next one is A, and that it stands for always available. So always keeping the system available. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the high-tech system. It could be low-tech system. It could be a symbol communication board. Just making sure that something is always available to that learner. And, if they don't have it, they can't learn it, they can't use it, they can't communicate.
Right.
It seems really simple, but that can be a really nice strategy to focus on in a classroom, just saying to the teacher, okay, the strategy we're working on for the next 2 weeks is just always available. Making sure the system's always available. That's all I'm asking you to do. Make sure it's out and that student has access to it.
Love it.
The next A.
Yes.
I knew I was going to forget one.
I'm like, tell me more.
Oh, yeah. Okay, got it. So the next A stands for add words. And this isn't about adding words into the system, because hopefully you've chosen a core vocabulary system or a comprehensive, robust AAC system that has most of the words in, and you will do some personalization. But add words in simple AAC is about adding words onto what that AAC learner is saying. So if they're saying a single word, you're adding a word on and you're building and expanding what they've said. So they say bubbles, you can say blow bubbles, more bubbles, bubbles up, and you're modeling all of the different ways that they can expand from that single word utterance to a 2-word phrase.
Love it. Always staying one step ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the final part of simple AAC stands for commenting. So that, again, is a reminder that we need to use lots of commenting and not get so stuck on asking questions, even though it can be really, really tempting, particularly if an AAC learner's got a new system and we want to kind of find out what they know and can they find different words. It can be really, really tempting to get stuck on asking questions. But commenting is going to give them way more something.
Space? I was thinking space to actually initiate and communicate.
Yeah. Commenting is going to give them a lot more space to just communicate a bit more freely. As soon as we ask a question, we're placing a demand on that learner to follow what we want to talk about and to respond to us. And if they don't know the answer to that question, we're not helping their confidence to build. So if we make a comment, we give them space to then respond, to say what they want, or we give them space to not respond.
Exactly. I love that. And it's so important because oftentimes, not only are we asking questions, but we're giving demands as far as directives. Find bubbles. Show me bubbles. Touch bubbles.
And what if the child doesn't want to say bubbles, actually? They want to say stop. They want to do something different.
Exactly.
Yeah, and by commenting as well, it's kind of taking us right back to the beginning of Simple AAC, because commenting is another way that we can be modeling language and communication for different reasons. So it's really important.
I love this, and it's so great because it can be utilized with any AAC system across the board. These are just really helpful strategies, and I love that you've simplified the process because it is overwhelming, especially for teachers and parents who have never had interaction with AAC. So thank you so much, Daisy, for all of this amazing work.
Yeah, and if you want to find any Simple AAC resources, you can just Google Simple AAC, and that will take you to the Smartbox webpage, and you can download loads of free resources. We've got flyers, posters you can print out, stick on the wall with all the strategies, booklets, there's webinars, there's loads of resources that you can get for free.
Love it. Thank you so much, Daisy, for coming back on and talking all about Simple AAC.
You're welcome. Really nice to talk to you, Rachel.
Of course. So for Talking with Tech, I'm Rachel Madel, joined with Daisy Clay. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Hi, I'm Mei-Ling Chan.
And I'm Martin Sibley.
And we are the hosts of the Exceptional Leaders Podcast, where we spotlight high-profile topics and amazing people who are changing the worldview on disability.
Even though we are oceans apart, we are bringing people from all over the world together to discuss inclusion, advocacy, accessibility, and real-life journeys.
So listen to the Exceptional Leaders Podcast to hear the voices and stories from amazing changemakers and be inspired to make a real difference in the world.
You're listening to the Exceptional Podcast Network.